So, what is MSF Venom? MSF Venom is a combination of MSF Payload and MSF Encode and can be used alongside Metasploit's multi-handler to generate reverse shells, but it's not limited to just that. More importantly, it lets us study payloads in depth. In this video, we'll see how to generate payloads and use them with Netcat to establish a shell connection. MSF Venom is included in Kali. To get a list of options, as usual, MSF Venom-H. The main options are localhost, local port, which are L host and L port, then P for payload and F for file extension or format. Localhost is the IP address of your Kali machine, usually the attacking machine. Local port is the port where the connection will be received. Payload refers to the software that will run on the victim machine, and format specifies the file extension. We'll see which ones are which soon. The software runs on the remote machine. In ethical hacking, payload is a technical term, but it's essentially malware. Everything I do on this channel is always ethical, so test these attacks only on devices you own for study purposes or research purposes, or if you become a penetration tester in the future, only against client systems after they've signed an indemnity clause in a formal contract. A payload is simply software. In ethical hacking, the goal is to execute a command or obtain a connection to the remote machine. MSF Venom comes with a huge variety of payloads. We can get a list using -- list and then payloads. Thanks, Dabby. Now, there are too many, obviously, so we'll save the output to a file with our trusty redirection operator on Linux. Let's save it to payloads.txt. Now, there are two key aspects to consider. One is the platform the software will run on: Android, Apple iOS, FreeBSD. If you scroll down, you will also find Windows and Linux, among others. The second aspect is the command that will be executed. A shell is a terminal. Meterpreter, on the other hand, is Metasploit's own software with many additional features, like recording audio and taking screenshots. It's basically a suite of programs. It's very sophisticated, but easy to use. Before the end of the video, we'll establish a connection from Kali to Kali itself. We've already covered other vulnerable machines on the channel. Check them out. Many more to come. Regarding the output formats, MSF Venom, list for formats. These are the formats. Once you've identified the target operating system and found a vulnerability, say on a server running Python, you will generate the payload in Python, of course, because it will not be compatible otherwise. If you already have access to the remote machine, you can create a binary for Linux or an exe for Windows. Let's try generating a Python payload. Back to the list, grab Linux payloads. I'm assuming you know a bit about Linux. Here I'm using grep to search for all the lines containing Linux. So we can generate a payload with this command: MSF Venom Linux x86 shell reverse TCP F Python. I haven't set the local host or port yet, but we have obtained a series of so-called opcodes for the Python payload. This is just the payload binary data that you will have to insert once you've exploited the remote machine, which will allow you to get a connection to the remote machine. We can get it in C, for example. As you can see, the syntax in C, in the C programming language, changes a little, but not much. We need to add IP and port numbers, which will be our local host and local port. Now, for the IP, we'll have to set our own IP. As far as the port is concerned, anything that's above 1000 will do, I guess. So yeah, the port is pretty much arbitrary. Metasploit, for how it works, it's actually a companion software for the Metasploit framework. It can work, you can generate Meterpreter payloads, and then with the multi-handler listener, listen for the Meterpreter payload and have a much more sophisticated reverse shell to use. Yeah, base64, bash, Java, there's absolutely everything. Now, let's suppose we want to run this on Linux Mint. Executables on Windows are called PE, Portable Executable. On Linux, they're called ELF, ELF, Executable and Linkable Format. So, MSF Venom list formats. Let's see what we have here. Why don't we have ELF? Oh, it's up there. There you go, ELF or EXE. EXE is not going to work on Linux, of course. We'll have to use ELF because we want to get a connection to a remote Linux Mint machine, which I've already set up. So we define a shell reverse TCP kind of payload with localhost, which is our own host, on port 3333. The format is ELF, and then with -o we save it to file. What is it? File exploit. It's an ELF 32-bit LSB executable. Now we have the file, but it's not executable yet. See, it's read, write, and then we don't have the executable, the X for executable flag set to on. So we enable it with chmod, and now we see that it's actually executable. It's also green for some reason. Now, we could move this to the Linux Mint machine, but I want to make it as easy as possible. Let's do this on this machine. We'll also do it on Linux Mint. Why not? Just remember that you have to click on Machine, Settings, then click on Network and make sure that it's set to Bridged, so that for both this machine and the Linux Mint machine, so that it's certain that they will be able to communicate between each other. Wait. Hey, thanks, Dubby. So let's do this here first. We listen, open another terminal, tab, with Ctrl, Shift and T, and listen with netcat on port 3333 NC-NLVP 3333, and then it's going to listen. This is called a reverse shell connection because we are listening here and we're sending it from here. Netcat is also known as the Swift army knife of networking. netcat TCP IPs with Army9. What it does here is just setting up a socket. A socket is simply a IP plus port combination. We launch the exploit and we see that we have a connection from our Kali machine to our Kali machine, but on a specific port. Who am I? Kali, your name. Nope, it's your name. AR. Kernel version. What users are on the system? cat, etc, passwd. Now, let's do this on a remote machine within our network. So maybe it's a little bit more clear. So what we'll have to do, we'll have to move this exploit to our other machine and execute it. So we create a new tab, we listen on the same port as before, and then we move this exploit file to var www.html with sudo service, in case you haven't started it. So that will be serving this file on the Apache server. In fact, if we visit this machine, this host IP, we'll see the Apache 2 Debian default page. And if we try to visit exploit, it'll just download the file. Let's call it, let's go into its directory. Let's call it exploit Firefox update 2.1.2.1. Yeah. Thanks again, Dobby. Then we start our Linux Mint machine. It's this one. Yes, I have Temple OS installed. Is this set to bridged? Let's check. Yep. Okay, should work. Now let's say that our Kali user sends an email to the Linux Mint user saying, hey, you've probably been hacked, you know. I think you should install from this website this specific Firefox update. It's very important that you do so. They might have hacked you. Here's the link. The dude's in a panic, so he downloads the file. He opens it in a terminal and then gives it permission for execution and then executes Firefox update 2.1. And the guy, the attacker, the original attacker, gets a connection to the Linux Mint machine. Bam, he's been pawned. Such a doofus. He's been hacked. I mean, this is a very simple attack because the attacker could have set up his website on the internet You could have hacked an internet website and then inserted and could have switched a legitimate update for his payload. It could have been certainly stealthier. And then he could have installed a rootkit on the victim's machine and added his host to a botnet, for example, that he could have sold on the dark web, for example. He now has complete access to the victim machine. See here, studente, which means student in Italian. I used this Linux Mint machine to develop a course on XAMPP a couple of weeks ago on the secure development of XAMPP applications, but they can be as secure as you fucking want. If the end user is susceptible to social engineering attacks, there's really not much that you can do about it. Yeah, maybe with firewalls, with real-time packet inspection, this other stuff, but with packet inspection, with real-time packet inspection and that kind of stuff. But you know, people, what a bunch of bastards. So now, as an exercise, take the exploit file, move it to another Linux virtual machine, and establish a connection from Linux Mint to Kali, as we did in this video. Remember that both virtual machines should be set to bridged networking mode so that they can communicate between themselves. They can actually also communicate with your host machine. So you could send the payload. You could hack your actual Windows machine if you wanted to. So to recap, generate the payload with MSF Venom, move it to the other virtual machine via, for example, a USB stick or a Python server. This is very easy. You can set up a Python server this way with Python desktop. For example, we have this file here. You type in Python, M for module, http.server on port, for example, 6969. Now, if we visit this host on port 6969, we'll get the contents of the directory. It's serving the files from the directory. So it's a very easy way to move files within a local network. Listen on your Kali machine with netcat and then run the exploit on the other virtual machine. I recommend Linux Mint or Ubuntu if you're just starting out with Linux. So to conclude the video, I cover MSF Venom in depth in my Metasploit course, which is not available yet in the English language, unfortunately, but just subscribe to YouTube. It'll become available eventually. You will also be able to save with the InfoSec bundle. It's 5 courses in total. It's coming probably in 2 or 3 months. Just be patient, please. In those courses, I also cover Vim, Bash, how to perform web and network penetration tests in a professional capacity. If you're new, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Prime Red and Security Global. There are about 30 videos you can watch on my channel for free at the moment. Check the playlists. 70 more are coming in the next 3 months as I'm wrapping up the entire channel translation from Italian to English. And I'm also on Twitch. That's where I am now, actually. And you'll find the link in the description, but the name of the channel is different because I like confusing people. It's Prime Red Empire, and you'll find it in the links. They're in the description. And that's everything for this video. Now I'll go play some Red Dead Redemption on Prime Red Empire on Twitch. See you soon. Ciao.